What is up, everybody? My name is Ryan Sturgis, owner of True Facade Pictures, and I am just so excited to welcome you to the very first episode of our new series called Social Justice in Cinema, where I'll be reviewing films that reveal factual information about the most important social justice issues facing our country today. Amongst all the noise out there between fake news and real news and social media, I'm just going to do my best through this series to bring you some real value by researching legitimate claims about our society made in these award-winning movies and introducing them to you so that you can discover them for yourselves. I'm also going to do my best to provide some resources for those of you who are going to want to take action after seeing these films. If you find that you are getting value out of this episode at any time throughout the show, please hit the thumbs up, put your thoughts down in the comments so that we can have a conversation, and definitely subscribe to the channel because I'm going to keep coming back with new films and new ideas. And there's just so many things that we can do as citizens, as consumers, as activists, as humans to make small changes, to inch our way to a better tomorrow. And the time to start is right now. So let's dive in. Today's film is called The Social Dilemma. Some of you have probably seen this brilliant documentary that was directed by Jeff Orlowski and produced by Larissa Rhodes that came out in September of 2020 on Netflix. If you haven't seen the film, feel free to go and watch it now and come back, or watch here first maybe and discover the film with some previous knowledge. I should say that there are some spoilers here, but nothing that will take away or detract from the incredible value that the film provides all on its own. Either way, you've got to watch the movie. It explores an array of dangers that social media poses through interviews with some of Silicon Valley's top tech experts. These are the folks who developed, designed, and monetized platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, Google. They built the apps we're using every day, and they are bellying up to the camera in this film to warn us about what they've done and the dire consequences that we're experiencing right now because of these platforms. The film begins by asking, what's the problem? And Tristan Harris, who's the president and co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology, and essentially the main focus of our film, is introduced to try to answer that.
If you ask people what's wrong in the tech industry right now, there's a cacophony of grievances and scandals, and they stole our data, and there's tech addiction, and there's fake news, and there's polarization, and there's some elections that are getting hacked. But is there something that is beneath all these problems?
The answer to Tristan's question is yes, and that something beneath all the problems is money. The purpose of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Google is to make money. They're not benevolent machines designed to help you stay connected with your friends and family or provide a platform for self-improvement or personal identification or leadership. They're designed to bring in cash. And the bottom dollar is their goal at every turn.
Everyone in 2006, including all of us at Facebook, just had total admiration for Google and what Google had built, which was this incredibly useful service. And they built this parallel money machine.
Tim Kendall, who was in charge of monetization at Facebook, discovered that the advertising model was the way for the platform to make money. And from that moment on, the number one product sold by social media companies, the richest companies in history by far, became human attention. The product is you.
The first 50 years of Silicon Valley, the industry made products, hardware, software, sold them to customers. Nice, simple business. For the last 10 years, the biggest companies in Silicon Valley have been in the business of selling their users.
The classic saying is, if you're not paying for the product, then you are the product. We're the product. Our attention is the product being sold to advertisers.
That's a little too simplistic. It's the gradual, slight, imperceptible change in your own behavior and perception that is the product. That's the only thing there is for them to make money from. Changing what you do, how you think, who you are.
So how do they do this? How could they possibly be so effective at capturing our attention that it's enough to change who we are?
Every single action you take is carefully monitored and recorded. Exactly what image you stop and look at, for how long you look at it.
They know when people are lonely, they know when people are depressed, they know when people are looking at photos of your ex-romantic partners.
Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, or what kind of neuroses you have, what your personality type is like.
They build models that predict our actions, and whoever has the best model wins.
At this point, the film does a brilliant job trying to emulate the computer, or the system that creates this model of its users. And it's the dude from Mad Men who pops up to play the evil computer in triplicate. It's very scary. And we learn about the three main goals of these companies. There's the engagement. They want to get you in there. There's the growth goal, to keep you coming back and to sucking others in with you. And then there's the advertising goal, to make major cash by predicting a user's behavior on their platform. And through these principles, they have gathered so much data on us that if they need us to do something to bring about a bigger sale, they just turn a dial.
His calendar says he's on a break right now. We should be live. Want me to nudge him? Yeah, nudge away. New link. He's primed for an ad. Sold. To Deep Fade Hair Wax. We had 468 interested bidders. We sold Ben at 3.262 cents for an impression.
They sell your attention at 3 cents an impression, and you're just a puppet. Oh, sorry, a model.
Anytime two people connect, the only way it's financed is through a sneaky third person who's paying to manipulate those two people. So we've created an entire global generation of people who are raised within a context with the very meaning of communication, the very meaning of culture is manipulation. We've put deceit and sneakiness at the absolute center of everything we do.
It's pretty serious stuff, right? I mean, how the hell did these people learn how to do this? Did they go to illusion or manipulation college, take classes dedicated to subterfuge and artifice? Well, it turns out, yes, they did, and it's called the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab at Stanford University.
When I was at the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab, this is what we learned. How could you use everything we know about the psychology of what persuades people and build that into technology?
There are many prominent Silicon Valley figures who went through that class, key growth figures at Facebook and Uber and other companies.
Persuasive technology is just sort of designed intentionally applied to the extreme, where we really want to modify someone's behavior. We want them to take this action. We want them to keep doing this with their finger.
You pull down and you refresh, it's going to be a new thing at the top. Pull down and refresh again, it's new. Every single time, which in psychology, we call a positive intermittent reinforcement.
Which operates just like the slot machines in Vegas.
Yeah, these guys are not screwing around. They're literally illusionists with Ivy League educations in psychological manipulation. So, social media is exploiting vulnerabilities in human psychology. It's addictive. It knows us better than we know ourselves. We're lab rats for no other purpose but for advertisers to make money, and our attention is the product being sold by the richest companies in human history. Can it get any worse than that?
These technology products were not designed by child psychologists who are trying to protect and nurture children. It's not just that it's controlling where they spend their attention. Especially social media starts to dig deeper and deeper down into the brainstem and take over kids' sense of self-worth and identity.
Apparently, yes. It gets much worse.
There has been a gigantic increase in depression and anxiety for American teenagers, which began right around between 2011 and 2013.
The cost of our attention in the ways in which it is demanded by these companies is far higher than just the time it takes away from us.
The number of teenage girls out of 100,000 in this country who are admitted to a hospital every year because they cut themselves or otherwise harm themselves. That number was pretty stable until around 2010, 2011, and then it begins going way up. It's up 62% for older teen girls. It's up 189% for the preteen girls. Even more horrifying, we see the same pattern with suicide. And that pattern points to social media.
This must be the problem, that children are dying at rates we've never seen before. That tech designers are manipulating them to constantly pacify themselves when things get tough in the real world, to compare themselves to unrealistic standards of beauty. That there are no protections behind the entire industry that holds almost 100% of our children's attention. I mean, that must be the biggest problem social media poses. We have to stop that. Like, can't we just stop using it? Or does it already have a hold on us? Is it possible that the age-old fear of machine over man, of robot rising up to overpower human beings, is actually upon us in a way that we never could have expected, using our vulnerabilities to gain its power?
We're all looking out for the moment when technology would overwhelm human strengths and intelligence. But there's this much earlier moment when technology actually overwhelms human weaknesses. This point being crossed is at the root of addiction, information overload, polarization, radicalization, outrageification, vanityification, the entire thing. And this is checkmate on humanity.
So how could we have let this happen?
We all simply are operating on a different set of facts. When that happens at scale, you're no longer able to reckon with or even consume information that contradicts with that worldview that you've created.
Over time, you have the false sense that everyone agrees with you because everyone in your newsfeed sounds just like you.
And then you look over at the other side and you start to think, how can those people be so stupid? Look at all of this information that I'm constantly seeing. How are they not seeing that same information? And the answer is they're not seeing that same information.
Okay, so in the spirit of being in a time when it's hard to know what's real and what's not, I should say that this film absolutely has some subjectivity to it, right? Yes, the people being interviewed are in fact the very people who took the manipulation classes, invented the like button, that developed monetization at Facebook, and yes, they have books out and they're invited all over the world to speak in front of ethics organizations and to do interviews on news shows and talk shows, but how do they know for sure that what they're saying has legitimate merit, that all of these horrible things should in fact be blamed mostly on social media? How can we know right now if these platforms have the capacity to change us so much, to polarize us to such extremes, it changes the course of history?
What are Republicans like?
People that don't have a clue.
The Democrat Party is a crime syndicate, not a real political party.
A huge new Pew Research Center study of 10,000 American adults finds us more divided than ever, with personal and political polarization at a 20-year high.
You have more than a third of Republicans saying the Democratic Party is a threat to the nation, more than a quarter of Democrats saying the same thing about the Republicans.
Algorithms and manipulative politicians are becoming so expert at learning how to trigger us, getting so good at creating fake news that we absorb as if it were reality, and confusing us into believing those lies. It's as though we have less and less control over who we are and what we really believe.
And on January 6, 2021, in Washington, D.C., through this speech in a 5-year-long social media disinformation campaign, Donald J. Trump, known as the Twitter president, incited an insurrection on our Capitol building, weaponizing American citizens who truly believe false information to be true. Those groups found each other and organized that insurrection on social media. So finally, we come to the biggest problem social media poses, and proof, in my estimation, that the experts in this film are absolutely correct about the dangers of these platforms. They are tearing democracies apart, and they're doing so through the citizens of those very democracies because they're tapped dry of their own attention through hypnosis, psychological warfare, and addictive propaganda for the sole purpose of monetary gain and destabilization. It's not the tech itself that's the existential threat. It's the people, when the very worst of who they are is brought to the surface. So what can we do? Don't think it isn't lost on me that I'm sharing this information with you right now on social media. So how can we keep what's valuable about these platforms and disregard or change what's dangerous about them? This tech is not just going to go away. The fight for people's attention is not going to stop. But if we allow ourselves to continue being manipulated in this way, will it lead to civil war? Will it lead to the destruction of our democracy, our society, our future? So what do we do? At the end of this film, these experts who have dedicated their lives to the ethics and technology offer up some great ideas. They encourage us as the product to demand legal reform, rules on data collection, competition, and outside regulation. We can tax data collection. As consumers, let's convince Silicon Valley they're barking up the wrong tree by not buying the junk that comes across our feed. The attention extraction model is not how we want to be treated, so we can stop it by not buying what they send us. We can stop it by turning off notifications for things that aren't bringing us any real benefit. We can uninstall apps that have no lasting value. We can stop clicking through to the clickbait. Choose what you want to watch. Choose who you want to connect with. But also, don't just look for information that feeds your ego. Do your own fact checking. Watch different news sources. use critical thought and limit your time on your device. Let's use social media only for the positive benefits that it provides us and take responsibility for our time on these platforms. We need to stay in charge of our actions, and we need to find ways to bring pressure for reform. We need to demand change because, as Tristan Harris says at the end of this film,
we have to.
And if you want to get going on it right away, below there are links to several books and websites that will get you started on understanding the depth of these issues and lead you to ways in which you can be part of the change. Social media can be a beautiful thing. We just need to make it work for us and not against us. Again, if you found that this episode brought you some value, and I mean real value, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tell me what you're thinking in the comments below. I really want to know. I'm Ryan Sturgis, and I'll see you next time right here on Social Justice and Cinema.